What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of SCUM. This right here is the podcast where we dive into the deep, dark, murky waters with a plethora of legendary guests. I am, of course, your host, your bastard of ceremonies, the number one scumbag, Rex Ruger, REXXX, get it right. You also know me as the King of Sleaze, a.k.a. the hair metal high priest, and most importantly, and I moved him to a place of prominence, no more glare, a.k.a. Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. Take a look. You know it to be true that you're looking at the son of glam, the front man for the band. Just smoked a few grams. I got a million fans. I'm your ice cream man. Mr. Wop Boppa Loo Boppa Wop Bam Bam. Shazam. Hot damn. Feeling good. And of course, looking good. As always, for me, that's made possible by boom. And let me remind you that I'm coming to you from the Lavender Lounge of Love. Look at this place. A little bit of new decor in here, but still the same old beautiful faces. Oh, I moved him also. The Keith Hernandez puppet, my sidekick, joining me as well. And today we're getting into a little bit of hardcore, if you can handle it out there. Let me hit up my guest right here. Today we got a good one. Because as always, you know that I'm bringing you legends. And today is no fucking different. And he is on his way. So we will chop it up with him. Un momento. He's here now. So dispense with the formalities. Of course, this is the No Frills podcast. You just saw me inviting my guest. We don't know how to do nothing over here the right way. So, but you get plenty of thrills. And what are the thrills? That's getting a look at this kisser. Okay. So you're welcome. Let's get into it with him on SCUM. I'm looking forward to this. Where is he? There he is. The man, the myth, the legend himself. Look at him.
You got it.
First of all, from one great front man to another, you should be able to tell that you're looking at the great Diamond David Lee Roth Jr. Is it obvious to you?
Yeah.
Gotta be, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Little bit. Okay, fair enough. Mad Joe Black, Wisdom and Chains, North Pennsylvania, right? Representing, right?
Yeah, Northeast, yep. We're in the
I am a New York. I am a New York guy, and of course, we'll always fight tooth and nail for the New York hardcore being the most legendary scene, but take nothing away from Pennsylvania hardcore. Wisdom and Chains fucking bringing it, man. And I'll tell you what, man. One thing I want to ask you right off the rip, and I've asked, I've had Paul Bearer on here. I've had Bob Riley on here. The numerous hardcore guys. But I'm interested on your take with just the whole hardcore sense of morals and the ethos and everything that hardcore really stands for. Does it still exist today, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I think, we came up in a time that was a little more, I think there was more at stake.
Yeah.
When I was entering hardcore, there was more at stake because the dangerous people at that time were truly dangerous.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So and they're still around today, so I think there's still a little bit of accountability that the scene has to kind of like police themselves and make sure that there's not a danger. Well, it's not a dangerous element because it's sort of dangerous in its nature, but just a counterproductive element, I guess. You know what I mean? It's always fallen on the people to remove the counterproductive element. It's a music that kind of is progressive, but extremely rooted in its
right.
Where it came from. It's very important that hardcore people remember their history.
Yeah.
It's very important as opposed to a lot of other more underground music scenes. Hardcore and punk, I believe, we really revere our roots.
Yeah, I get that sense from it.
You know what I mean?
From people involved in the scene. Yeah. And I think that's important.
Well, as far as morals go, if you're talking about just like, I think one of the foundations of our hardcore morals, if that's a thing, would be our respect for the roots, and number two would be our ability to police ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Before I get into any more questions, as people on my show know, in my studio here, been experiencing a lot of technical difficulties. Am I coming across really good and not getting frozen and pixelated?
It's a little pixelated, but it's fine. It's not interrupting the flow of anything.
Oh, okay, so I'm not kind of getting stuck or anything like that. I'm flowing pretty. I'm moving pretty okay.
Yep.
Okay, because I just revamped the whole thing and just went to the mesh internet thing, and I had a friend of mine here help me set it all up. So this is actually the trial run right here. So
okay, yeah, no, it looks fine.
And when Wisdom and Chains gets together, because one thing I love about you guys, and this is not to impugn what other hardcore bands do, but a lot of what makes hardcore and punk music, it's so stripped back and so simple. And that's not to impugn anybody in the scene as far as their musicianship goes. But one thing about you guys is there is great instrumentation, there is great playing, and there is some intricate stuff going on that you don't often hear in hardcore. When you guys get together, though, what's the creative process like? Does someone bring the lion's share of the ideas in, or is it really collaborative amongst all you guys?
It's definitely collaborative. I would say Richie, our guitar player Richie, definitely writes most of the core riffs of songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then everybody gets an opinion on what any changes that get made. But Richie is like a machine when it comes to just riff writing.
Yeah,
he's incredible at just cranking out riff after riff after riff, and he's got a lot of really good ideas. Lyrically, I take care of most of the lyrics of the band. I mean, most of it, over the overwhelming majority. But again, it's sort of like a very democratic process where if somebody doesn't like something, we all have to kind of like we need a majority vote to get pass things through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I always think of it like the band is a core sample of an audience,
right?
So you don't write music for your audience to like it, but it's helpful to know if an audience would like it or not. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That shouldn't be the focus. You shouldn't be writing to get a reaction from an audience. You should just write something that's truthful and something that you really love. However, it's good to know that you can have both.
Yeah. Is the message, when you're writing these lyrics, what's the impetus behind them? Like, where do you draw your inspiration from? Obviously, there's lots to get, angry about in the world just by turning on the news or opening up a newspaper or whatever. But you guys also have a lot of songs that really, speak to empowerment and having self-integrity and, really good positive messages behind it. Where do you draw that from?
I think it's a little evolution, you know what I mean? Because I can't write angry songs all the time because I'm not angry like I used to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm 46 years old. I have to write from the perspective of a 46-year-old dad. You know what I mean? Business owner. Like there's different types of stresses at this age than there was when I was 17. You know?
Right.
So you just kind of write from the perspective that you're living in, and it's. As long as you're doing that, it's going to be truthful.
Yeah,
and someone should be able to relate to it. That's the goal.
What pulled you into hardcore, man? Like, why hardcore for you? And what was the first punk or hardcore music that really resonated with you? Who spoke to you initially that you kind of look at as like, wow, here's kind of what jump started my love for this?
I got into it because I was an angry kid. I like that ripe age where you gotta kind of take a step out into the darkness away from the things that
yeah
and hardcore just was the perfect platform for me to step onto. My brother brought home my older brother Simon brought Minor Threat, Dead Kennedys, Minor Threat, Dead Kennedys, Bad Brains, Black Flag, Ramones, Bad Religion, and then a bunch of new wave, 80s new wave music too, which I liked a lot of that stuff too. So I just kind of absorbed all of it, and I didn't know specifically. I didn't know hardcore was a scene. I didn't know anything about that side of it. I just knew the lyrics and the aggressive sound, and you know what I mean. The vibe, the overall vibe was so angry, and it just spoke to exactly how I was feeling at that time. You know.
Yeah.
So the thing that I really clung to more than any of the rest of it was the Ramones, which is probably the least angry of all of those things.
Yeah.
But that was the one that I was like obsessed with, you know, right from the start. I was obsessed with the Ramones. I still am. And that was for sure the one that really cemented it. Like, I'm going to explore this underground shit and figure out what it is.
Yeah.
When I first went to my first hardcore show, at that point I was obsessed with Sick of It All.
Yeah.
That was my first hardcore band I went to see.
Yeah, love them.
And so I would say those two bands, Ramones and Sick of It All, were probably my really intro to punk and hardcore.
And as a band, well, personally and as a band, you know, going back a couple of years, when everything was quarantined and, you know, the plug was pulled on live shows and, you know, our world kind of got turned upside down with this COVID shit. How did that affect you guys as a band? Did that derail anything that you guys had going on specifically at that time?
Not necessarily. We kind of slowed down in recent years, you know what I mean? Like, prior to that, we had been like really picking and choosing specific things that we wanted to play, and not touring just out of habit or out of necessity, but more just touring because it's something that makes sense and that we're all going to have fun doing, you know?
Yeah.
So playing less shows is never like a scary thing to me. I enjoy playing shows, but I enjoy playing the right shows. You know what I mean? I enjoy playing like the things that mean something to me, you know? And so just slowing down during COVID kind of allowed all of us to explore different things that we were interested in. Also, Richie and two of the other guys did a music project of their own, sort of like stuff that wasn't quite right for Wisdom in Chains or wasn't used for Wisdom in Chains.
Right.
And they turned it into a whole band, you know? That's called Z9. It's a very good band. It's out on Fast Break Records. Really good project with Richie, Luke, and Evan did together. I have always had his love for reggae music, and I did an entire reggae album. I recorded an album. I have, you know, right at this moment right now, I'm sitting on 14 songs that I recorded with Chuck Treese and Jeff Stress Davis. And that was like something if COVID didn't happen, I probably never would have got an opportunity to do that, you know?
Yeah.
So it was sort of I wouldn't say COVID was a blessing in any way, but it definitely, we made the most of the time apart, you know?
And when you guys do, you know, you mentioned scaling back to touring a little bit. You know, obviously, as we get older, you know, you mentioned obviously the narrative in your life changes. You know, you don't do things the way you did it in your teens or your 20s or whatever. You know, how do you guys work out that itinerary now? You know, as you mentioned, kids come into the equation, significant others. You know, maybe you have a job that keeps you. You know, what I mean, that limits your amount of time that you can go out on tour. How do you guys work that out? You know, as a band, is that hard? You know, to all get on the same page with an itinerary?
I would say, yeah, it is hard to get on the same page, but the most important thing is just saying no when it's not the right thing.
Yeah.
You know? And just exercising that power to say no to things is important for everybody in the band. Because I don't want to be forced into a situation that I'm not comfortable with, and nobody else. I don't want any of my guys to be either. You know? So I think we're all of the age now where we can understand that there's a bigger world out there than just playing shows. You know what I mean? And for the longest time, I was the only one in the band that had a kid. But now there's another. Richie has a kid now too, and it's a different thing when you have a kid. It's a different thing saying yes and leaving your family. It's a very different vibe than just like taking off of work or something. You know what I mean? there's a lot more at stake when you're leaving the family behind. So,
is there a length of tours that's comfortable that works for you guys? Like what, like how long are you willing to go away from your commitments at home?
I don't know. We haven't really settled on a number, but like for me personally, I think like maybe like a week is good. I would do more if it was correct. If everything was like, if all the ducks were in a row.
Yeah,
but,
I get that though, because I'm 50 years old too though, and you like your creature comforts. I mean, you do like being away from home less. I get that. It is harder.
It's hard. Like there's things that you miss that are, it's important and you can't get them back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like important moments with kids, more than anything. There's moments that you cannot get back. And I missed over the years, I did miss a birthday and a couple of holidays, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And that is regretful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Missing shows to me has never been regretful in that way. You know what I mean? There's things like, oh, I wish we got to play that. I wish we got to play it. But it's not the kind of thing that keeps you up at night. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm not gonna think about that on my deathbed. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And then what about from like I can ask this because certainly I feel the stresses of doing certain things as I get older. Obviously hardcore bands, or just rock bands in general, but especially hardcore though. There's that give and take, that exchange of energy between band and audience. And I've seen you guys, via YouTube, and haven't ever seen you guys in a live setting. But watching what you do on YouTube, very physical, very intense show. How does that? Has the narrative on that changed as you've gotten older, in terms of your preparation or recovery time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's harder, man. It's a lot harder. And so like I don't know when it happened. I really don't know when there was like the switch was flipped, but it's harder now. So people climbing on my back, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And jumping off of me, and just that whole keeping up that intensity for 40 minutes or however long the set has to be. Right. Keeping up that intensity is like really feels like work now. And it didn't used to feel like work. And now it's just like it's tough, but it's completely necessary. Because without that, the show is lame. I wouldn't enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure.
Like if I had to play a show and just stand still in one place the whole time, it's not enjoyable for me. Right. Which is all over my entire body language and vibe, and everybody watching knows that I'm not enjoying myself. Right. So it just kind of like ruins the whole thing. So you have to keep it up. It's just difficult. So I have been taking in preparation for shows, I do like ramp up my cardio at the gym and like stuff just to try to like mitigate that. We just played out in Las Vegas for punk rock bowling, which is like at a higher altitude anyway, and it was tough, man. I was winded like from the first song, like midway through the first song until we were finished. I was like, it felt like my lungs shrank. So it was a challenge. I got through it. I did it, but I feel like if I didn't prepare, I would have been like completely fucked. Like I wouldn't have been able to get through the set, man.
And as you get older and the priorities in your life change, and I ask a lot of musicians on who come on here the same question, is it anything, and I don't know what you've got, what other endeavors you've got going on in your life, but have you ever thought about a stop date on getting up on a stage, or is it one of those things like I'll do this till the wheels fall off?
I hope it's till the wheels fall off. I really do. And I'll tell you, like one of my reasons for doing the reggae project, especially during COVID, right? Yeah. We didn't know what we were coming back to. Right. And there was a lot of talk of like hardcore, all music venues required to just have seated audiences. Yep. Like nobody knew what it was going to be. Right. And I was like, I really love performing. I do love the energy exchange from stage. But if we had to do Wisdom and Change to a seated audience, that's the end of hardcore.
Yeah.
Like hardcore can't exist to a seated audience.
Yeah.
It has to be that violent energy exchange. Like it's necessary for it, you know? So I was trying to think of another thing that would be fun to do for a seated audience. Let's just imagine in a, you know, some dystopian world where I'm not allowed to play Wisdom in Chains anymore because it's not fun. So what could I play that would be fun? And that seemed like a really good route because I do love this music also that I'm creating with my friends. Yeah. And so, yeah, it just kind of made sense. But that being said, I don't want to stop Wisdom in Chains because I love it. It's like, you know, it's such a huge part of my history, you know, and it's a huge part of my daily thought process too. Like there's so many things that go into my decision making that are directly tied to Wisdom in Chains.
Sure.
History, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just memories with these guys, like, you know, I don't think any of us are ready to hang it up, you know?
Yeah. And I will say, as an advocate for pot smoking, you know, as something that I enjoy, and obviously the reggae crowd does too, we like to sit down.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man. That's like probably a huge part of that scene. You know what?
We don't mind it so much.
As far as like scenes go, I don't really know anything about the scene. I just know that there's a lot of old reggae music that I'm a big fan of.
Love it. Yeah.
So we try to kind of duplicate a vibe of something that's very nostalgic.
Did you grow up with a lot of reggae? Is that where this comes from? Was there a lot of reggae on in your house growing up?
No, there really wasn't. It's something that I kind of discovered later in life. I grew up on a lot of like Motown.
Yeah, me
too.
You know
what I mean? Motown music mostly.
Yeah.
And so I always had a love for like soul music and things like that. And then when I discovered reggae, I was probably 19 or 20 when I really started listening a lot to it, you know?
Yeah.
And then hanging out with Chuck Treese and Stress, they're like reggae historians.
Yeah.
So I've learned so many cool groups that I never even knew about.
Yeah.
Just working with these two guys. They're both incredible musicians, and they got a great studio minds, and they have an incredible knowledge of what this music is supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
So, I've learned a lot since working with them too.
And now, being a front man yourself, you know, within your own hardcore scene, you know, who are some front men? And you've been doing this a long time, so I don't want to word it like, you know, influences. You know, I think when you're in the game for as long as you are, you know, you kind of dispense of that stuff. But who are some guys who you look at in the hardcore world as front men and just say, wow, that's a guy who I admire. He's always done it right. You know what I mean? That's a guy who you know, who knows how to be the front man for a hardcore band.
Yeah. I think Freddie Madball is like he's got to be the top, you know,
amazing.
Definitely
I've never seen Madball live, but they're going to be coming to Syracuse here in September. I'm in upstate New York, and I'm not going to miss them. Yeah.
Freddie is just, he's got to be the best. I would say top 3 just to, you know, give some wiggle room, but he's got to be the best.
Yeah.
Freddie's just amazing. It's like the energy from this dude is just unparalleled. He's incredible. His energy. Scott Vogel from Terror, his ability to hype up a crowd, especially if the crowd is not going their way, and his ability to just get in their heads and hype them up is like magic. It's like it's incredible. He's so good at it. I think just overall like talent and ability for like being a vocalist and a very good frontman too. But Anthony from E-Town Concrete, is to me, he's like the ultimate weapon because he can do so many things well.
Yeah.
I feel like he's like one of the greatest like hardcore vocalists ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just in terms of pure talent, he's just incredible. But there's so many guys that I admire, you know, vocally and just their ability to command a stage there's a lot of people that are very good at it. But
Well,
those
the last hardcore show that I was at was Sick of It All at Agnostic Front, and it was such a treat to watch, especially after everything with the cancer that Roger's been through. To watch him up there, you know what I mean, and still just kicking ass. And Lou from Sick of It All, you know, you always know what you're going to get with them. You know, you mentioned them earlier, man. Fucking great. You know, I mean,
Sick of It All is like a machine, man. They're so dialed in. They've always been that way too. They're just dialed in, you know. And then Agnostic Front is awesome. Just the legendary status of these guys, and Vinny Stigman just never ceases to amaze me. He's
unbelievable. Unbelievable. The guy just doesn't age.
He doesn't age, and his like youthful spirit is just like
very exuberant.
I can be like that at that age, you know.
Is hardcore going forward though? And again, this is not to impugn what anybody is doing right now, but I know I asked you earlier, like about the whole ethos and the mindset and the morals, because certainly I think of hardcore. I think of all those bands we just mentioned. You know, the Lower East Side of New York. It was very gritty. It was a different New York City. I think it bred a lot of those bands, i.e., the Agnostic Fronts and the Cro-Mags of the world or whatever. But then, as it progressed, it seemed like we talked about that spirit a little bit. That maybe it was starting to lessen a little bit when you get some of these bands that come out of like the suburbias of the world or whatever. Is hardcore going forward though going to be in good hands?
I think so.
Yeah.
Just think about like the beginning of hardcore. There was still like suburban bands that weren't from the streets. You know what I mean?
Right,
it was still and there was cool suburban bands that weren't from the streets. Like really good ones.
Yeah.
And then they coexisted right alongside with the hardest dudes in New York City.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Playing at the same show at CBGB's. And so I think it's always been a little bit of mix. You know what I mean? Everybody is not the hardest. And that shouldn't be a goal of anyone's. You know what I mean? Right. At some point, you got to kind of grow up and think bigger picture. So, but for example, there was just this Tied Down Fest out in Detroit.
Okay.
2 weeks ago. Amazing. Massive crowd. And there was new bands that were like this, brand new bands that are really got a lot of hype behind them.
Mm-hmm.
There was also a lot of older bands, like Negative Approach played a killer set at Tied Down. It's named after one of their songs.
Yeah.
But Tied Down Fest in Detroit and Negative Approach just blew it up. And that's like, to me, Negative Approach is like an architect of New York hardcore.
Definitely.
In my opinion. I think Negative Approach kind of made a model that a lot of the New York bands copied off of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And probably definitely progressed on it and made it even more, added more groove and New York like flavor to it for sure. But Negative Approach can still play it to a massive crowd and blow the roof off the place right alongside a band like Trapped Under Ice.
Yeah,
who will absolutely blow the roof off the place.
Yeah,
and that's not even a new band anymore. Like you can't call Trapped Under Ice new. You know what I mean? They've been doing it for a long time. To me, that's like a legacy band already. You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's in good hands. As long as hardcore kids always remember to be rooted in the history, I think it will always be in good hands. As long as they respect and revere the roots, it's headed in the right direction.
And now you guys, speaking about Wisdom in Chains, your last full length was 2018.
Yeah, 2018.
Sex Weakness, right? But you guys did do an EP in between there, though, or a split EP.
We did a 7-inch. Yeah, we did a split 7-inch with the band from Los Angeles called. Oh my goodness, this is crazy.
Sharp
Shock.
Sharp
Shock. I'm sorry. We did a band with. We did a split 7-inch with Sharp Shock. We each did a original and a cover. We have an opportunity, actually. We might be doing another one of those shortly with another band. One thing about Wisdom in Chains, we absolutely love doing cover songs and like tribute to, our roots. Like it's important to us that people recognize like where our influences are from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we always throw a lot of covers out there. We have, I don't know if there's another hardcore band that did more covers than Wisdom in Chains. I can't think of one because we probably have like 15 or 16 covers that we recorded of other bands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From Black Sabbath, Ramones, Coxsparrer, just a lot of covers. We did a lot of covers over the years.
So I would be remiss. Well, first of all, you mentioned covers. Obviously, like, these have popped up on various albums. Ever any thought of putting them all together in one compilation and doing like just a full covers album? Or do you like kind of throwing them onto different albums?
Yeah, we just put them as like bonus tracks and stuff like that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think we ever talked about really putting them together. That might make sense. I don't know. Yeah, that might be cool.
But I certainly would be remiss if I didn't ask, though, what is in the works for Wisdom of Change as far as like a fully realized. Now, obviously, with the music business having changed so much in bands, putting out singles or the attention span not being what it used to be, the record industry not being what it used to be. A lot of people are going the EP route, smaller batches of songs, smaller batches of well-crafted songs. Seems like you don't have people's attention for as long as you used to. Do you guys have a definitive stance on that? Like, do you guys still like to put out an LP or is it a mixed bag for you guys?
We always like the idea of a work of art.
Yeah.
Right. So the beauty to me of an album, going back to when I was a kid, was when you listen to it from front to back and there's a flow to it, and you carefully choose what song goes in what order because it's supposed to have a flow and you know what I mean, from front to back. Agree. So I really enjoy that, and we definitely are going to put out 7 inches and things like that whenever it strikes us. But I think that there's nothing quite like listening to a well-crafted album from front to back.
Yeah,
So I think that's probably. I would imagine everybody in the band feels that way. I know a few guys do for sure.
And you guys have a timetable on when you think the next fully realized Wisdom and Chains album? Are you guys in the process of writing or doing anything for an album?
We're talking about jamming,
Okay.
But we don't have any actual plans for like a release of an album. But we definitely, like I said, we got an opportunity to do a split 7-inch with another band recently.
Yeah.
And actually, there's definitely one, possibly two. So we'll see whatever happens with those things. But we're definitely like discussing getting together and writing. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
And this usually winds up being my toughest question, Mad Joe. I have to hit you with this one, though. Your desert island pick. If I'm dropping Joe Black on a desert island and you can only take one fucking album, do you got one?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Wow, it's so definitive, too. I like that. A man who knows what he wants.
People always look at me weird when I say this, but I feel it's a perfect album, and it's got all of the moods that I'm going to need to be on an island by myself. I will take U2, the Joshua Tree.
Wow. And you were so definitive. And you know what? You're one of the first people I've asked that question to who really gets why this is a tough question. Because, I love extreme music, metal, hardcore, whatever. But you're right. On an island, though, when you're running the whole gamut of emotions, you don't want just one style of music.
No, you can't pick like a metal album like that's just, anger or doom or something like that. Like you need some hope. You need some sadness in there. You know what I mean? You need some a little bit of tongue in cheek, right? You're gonna need something to amp you up.
Sure.
Something that gets you fired up. You're gonna need something that calms you down. You're gonna need all of the emotions. And to me, that's a perfect album that has all the emotions, and it's the perfectly produced album. And that's one of my favorite albums of all time.
A shout out to Ireland's finest too. Ireland representing, man. Fucking U2, the greatest thing to come out of Ireland, probably. Outside of maybe I don't know. That's not where beer originated from. I don't know why I would think beer. Certainly lots of alcoholics.
Great Irish export for sure.
Great Irish export, yeah. And I really appreciate you doing this. It's been a real pleasure. Hopefully we can get together and do this. Again sometime soon. When you've got more time. I know we talked offline. I know parental duty calls. So we put a stop time on this, and I want to honor that because I got kids and grandkids too. I know the grind never stops with that. So, I mean,
man.
that's important, man. But I wish you all the luck going forward, man. Please stay in touch. When I put your episode up, I'll send you a link. Please feel free to share it wherever you want, man. It's been great getting the chance to talk to you, even for the limited time that we have. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, for sure, man. This was fun. Thanks for asking me.
My pleasure.
Good questions.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Joe Black. Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you, brother.
Thanks.
All right, later, man.
Bye.
There he goes, folks. That is what you call a hardcore legend. Can I say it enough? Staples of the hardcore scene, man. Wisdom in Chains, just fucking a band that's always fucking bringing it, man. And as I said in the interview, great players too, great instrumentation, very interesting music being played that you don't always hear, with hardcore being so stripped down and basic. And again, that's not to impugn what any of the bands do, man, but it is more of a primal, very primitive sound or whatever. But the guys in Wisdom in Chains, man, I mean, they do it a bit different, man. And it's hard as fuck, man, but they are very accomplished fucking players, man. I encourage anybody to do their homework and go check them out. Nothing in Nature Respects Weakness. That was the last album they put out in 2018. You also heard him say that they did a split EP. I think in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, but 2018 was the last full-length album from them, man. But they are a fucking beast. Pennsylvania fucking hardcore. And yes, even though I'm in New York, we could fucking still claim them because they're still fucking East Coast, man. East Coast is where the fucking hardcore bread is fucking buttered. Fight me if you don't fucking agree. You can't disagree because it's the truth. New York hardcore, East Coast hardcore. This is the coast where it all goes down right here, man. No one does it fucking better, man. And really want to thank Mad Joe Black. That was just a fucking awesome conversation. And just so honored to have some time to talk to him, man. And hope you guys enjoy that episode as much as I enjoyed chopping it up with him. Of course, go follow everything that Wisdom in Chains does. Go do your Google homework and be on the lookout for Joe's foray into the reggae world. Because I guarantee that will be fucking kick-ass and fucking interesting. Because I think everything that these guys do is super cool and fucking interesting. Wouldn't expect this to be any different. Go out and support those guys. You get the chance to go see them in a town or a fucking club near you, man. Take the opportunity. Go support the live music, man. Hardcore will always fucking give you a kick-ass fucking show and a kick-ass experience and a great exchange of energy between artists and fucking audience. There's nothing quite like it, man. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Until we get together and we do this thing again, remember to take it easy and keep it sleazy.